Mississippi, 1891. Three Rottweilers disappeared into the darkness, hunting a 12-year-old girl named Amelia. The dogs Brutus, Caesar, and Nero were trained killers weighing over 100 pounds each. They had never failed. The plantation owner, Thomas Thornhill, expected them back within an hour, dragging what remained of the child. But 8 hours passed in silence. When the dogs finally returned, what they brought back made even the cruelest men on that plantation step backward in shock. What happened during those 8 hours would expose a secret so devastating it would shake the foundation of everything they thought they knew. And it started with a girl who wasn't supposed to exist. Amelia was born in 1879, 14 years after slavery officially ended in America. But on Thornhill Plantation in rural Mississippi, no one told the enslaved people that freedom had come. The plantation sat deep in the backwoods, miles from any town, hidden behind forests and swampland. The nearest sheriff was paid to look the other way. Mail never arrived. Visitors never came. 43 people lived and died on that land, believing they were still property. They believed escape meant death because that's what they were told every single day. Amelia's mother died giving birth. Her father was sold before she could walk. She was raised by an elderly woman named Ruth, who whispered dangerous stories of a war that supposedly freed them all. But Ruth also warned her never to speak those words aloud because Thomas Thornhill had killed people for less. Amelia worked in the main house, scrubbing floors, carrying water, serving meals while being told she was lucky to eat scraps. She learned to make herself invisible. But inside, something burned, a question Ruth planted years ago. If we're free, why are we still here? On October 14, 1891, Amelia made her choice. She ran. She slipped out just after midnight wearing only her thin cotton work dress. No food, no blanket, no shoes. The darkness was so thick she couldn't see her hands in front of her face, but she ran anyway toward the east, where Ruth said the river led to towns where black people lived free. Back at the plantation, a woman discovered Amelia's empty pallet and woke the overseer, a man named Cyrus Gann, who smiled when he hurt people. He walked to the dog pen and let the Rottweilers sniff Amelia's blanket. "Find her?" he said. The dogs bolted into the night. Amelia heard them when she was a mile into the woods' distant barking that grew closer and closer until she could hear their paws hammering the earth. Branches tore her face. Thorns ripped her feet. She ran blind through the darkness. She came to a creek. Ruth had told her water could hide your scent. Amelia jumped in, the cold current pulling her downstream as she clung to rocks. The barking stopped briefly, but the dogs found the scent again and splashed into the water behind her. She pulled herself onto the opposite bank and ran for another hour, her wet dress heavy as stones, her lungs burning, her legs cramping. Time disappeared. There was only the running and the sound of the dogs getting closer. Then she saw a half-collapsed cabin covered in vines in a small clearing. Amelia didn't care that it looked abandoned. She ran inside and pulled the broken door shut, sliding down against the wall as her whole body shook. The barking was close now, maybe 50 yards away. The cabin was empty, just dirt, rotting wood, and shadows. She crawled into the corner farthest from the door and curled into a ball, praying for the first time in years. The door exploded inward. Brutus came through first, teeth bared, Caesar and Nero right behind him. They filled the cabin with snarling and snapping. Amelia screamed. Brutus lunged. Then the floor gave way. Amelia fell through the rotted wood and dropped into darkness, hitting the ground hard. She was in a cellar pitch black, maybe 10 feet down. The dogs raged above her, but the hole was too small for them to follow. Hours passed. The dogs didn't leave, staying at the edge of the hole, barking and growling. Amelia sat in the dark, bleeding, freezing in her wet dress, not knowing what else to do. Then the barking changed quieter, uncertain. The dogs moved away from the hole, distracted by something. A voice called down, "Girl," it was an old woman's voice, rough but not unkind. "You down there? Them dogs is gone." "You can come up now." An old black woman with silver hair helped pull Amelia from the cellar and gave her water. "Where did the dogs go?" Amelia asked. The woman smiled sadly. "I sent them away." "Same way I've been sending away everything that comes looking for me for near 40 years. I know things that scare dogs and men. My name is Esther. I was enslaved once too. I ran. They sent dogs after me, but I learned how to survive. Amelia's legs gave out. What do I do? You rest, then you keep running, but this time you run smart. I'll show you the way. Amelia slept for 2 hours on the dirt floor. When she woke at dawn, Esther was watching the tree line with a knife in her hand. They'll come soon, Esther said. The dogs went back. The men will want to know why. She gave Amelia a small sack with dried meat, hard bread, and water enough for 2 days if she was careful. She wrapped Amelia's bleeding feet with strips of cloth. Why are you helping me? Amelia asked. Esther didn't answer right away. Because somebody helped me once, long time ago. And I swore if I ever got the chance, I'd do the same. She told Amelia not to go to the river, they'd be waiting there. Instead, she needed to go north through the swamp to a settlement of free black people 4 days away. Most people don't make it, Esther warned. Most people don't make it here either, Amelia replied. Esther smiled. You got some fire in you. Good, you'll need it. Minutes after Amelia left, Cyrus Gann arrived with 5 armed men. They found Esther sitting calmly in the cabin. Where is she? Cyrus demanded, pointing his rifle at her face. Ain't no girl here, just me, Esther said. Your dogs must have lost the scent. Cyrus searched the empty cellar, then left with his men. Esther grabbed her knife and slipped out the back. She had her own running to do now. Amelia moved north as fast as her broken feet allowed. By midday, the trees grew thicker and darker. She smelled the swamp before she saw it rot and standing water in death. The swamp stretched before her like a black mirror. She had 2 choices, go through or go around. Going around would take days she didn't have. She stepped into the water. It came up to her knees, then her waist, then her chest. The bottom was soft mud that sucked at her feet. Something brushed against her leg. She froze, waited, then kept moving when it passed. It took 3 hours to cross. When she finally pulled herself onto dry land, she collapsed, shaking, covered in mud and slime, her cloth foot wrappings lost somewhere in the water. Then she heard footsteps. A tall black man emerged from the trees carrying a rifle. Amelia tried to stand but couldn't. You running? He asked. When Amelia didn't answer, he lowered his rifle and sat down. It's all right. I ain't gonna hurt you. I'm running too. My name's Marcus. I've been free for 6 months. I'm heading north to the settlement. He gave her dried fish from his pack. As she ate, she told him about Thornhill Plantation. Marcus's face filled with anger. That place is supposed to be abandoned. Everybody knows the war freed the slaves 30 years ago. Not there, Amelia said. Nobody told us. Nobody came. 43 people are still there. Maybe less now. Marcus stood and paced. We gotta tell somebody. When we get to the settlement, they'll listen. They rested through the night and moved at first light. Around midnight the next day, Marcus heard voices a mile behind them, at least 3 men coming their way. They ran. The men were tracking them, following the blood Amelia's feet left on the ground. They came to a ravine with a stream at the bottom. We got to jump, Marcus said. They jumped. Amelia hit hard, pain shooting through her ankle. They ran along the bottom as gunshots rang out behind them, bullets hitting trees near their heads. Then they broke through the tree line. In front of them was a clearing filled with houses, real houses, with smoke rising from chimneys. People working in gardens stopped and stared. Amelia and Marcus stumbled forward. 3 men burst from the trees behind them. Those 2 are runaways, one shouted. They're our property. An old black man with white hair stepped forward. Ain't no property here, just free people, and you're trespassing. You got a right to leave right now before I get my rifle? More people formed a line between the armed men and Amelia and Marcus. The 3 men, outnumbered, backed away and disappeared into the woods. Amelia's legs finally gave out completely. The old man Samuel knelt beside her. Where y'all come from? Thornhill Plantation, Marcus said. And there's 40 more people still there who need help. Samuel's face went hard. Get the sheriff. Get the federal marshal. We're ending this today. 2 days later, Federal Marshal Clayton arrived with 20 deputies and soldiers. Amelia and Marcus rode with them back to Thornhill Plantation. They arrived at sunset. Marshal Clayton confronted Thomas Thornhill on his porch, but Thornhill smiled and claimed his workers were paid employees. The marshal walked to the shacks where the 43 people gathered in terrified silence. When he asked if they were held against their will, no one spoke. Amelia stepped forward. "They're scared. They've been punished their whole lives for telling the truth." She turned to face Marshal Clayton. "These people have been enslaved here since before I was born. Mr. Thornhill told us the war never ended. He beat us. He killed people who tried to run. I'm only 12 years old and I've seen 6 people murdered here." "That's a lie," Thornhill shouted. "If it's a lie," Amelia said, "then why did you send dogs to kill me?" She turned to Ruth. "Show him." One by one they turned and lifted their shirts. Years of beatings carved into their backs. Marshal Clayton's hands balled into fists. "Mr. Thornhill, you're under arrest for illegal enslavement, kidnapping, murder, and violating the 13th Amendment." Thornhill was dragged away in handcuffs, screaming and cursing. The people from the shacks watched in stunned silence. Then someone started crying, not sad tears, but tears of relief, disbelief, and joy mixed together. Ruth pulled Amelia into her arms. "You came back for us. I promised myself I would," Amelia whispered. "If I survived, I'd come back." Over 3 days, the marshal documented everything: the graves in the woods, the evidence, the testimonies. Thomas Thornhill's trial took place 8 months later. The jury deliberated less than 2 hours, guilty on all counts. He died in prison after 18 months. Amelia stayed at New Hope. A family took her in. Marcus taught her to read. Within 6 months, she could read better than most adults. She wanted to understand the world, to make sure no one could ever lie to her again. 5 years after her escape, 17-year-old Amelia stood on the porch of her own small house. Ruth lived 2 houses down, tending a garden she grew for herself. Marcus had married and had a baby boy. New Hope was growing. Amelia worked as a teacher, teaching children to read and write, teaching them their rights and their history. One evening, a young girl asked, "Miss Amelia, is it true you ran from dogs?" "Were you scared?" Amelia knelt to look the girl in the eyes. "I was terrified every second, but I ran anyway." "You want to know why?" "Because being scared don't mean you can't be brave. Being scared just means you're still alive. And as long as you're alive, you can choose. You can choose to give up or you can choose to keep going. I chose to keep going. And that's what made all the difference." The sun set over New Hope. Children played in the streets. People sat on porches and talked and laughed. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever was, but it was theirs. And it was free.